einen wunderschönen guten Abend und heißen Sie willkommen zum Finale der Fechtweltmeisterschaften 2005 in Leipzig im Mannschaftswettbewerb Damen-Degen. Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles, Messieurs, bonsoir. Bienvenue au championnat du monde 2005 par équipe épreuve épée féminine. Wir begrüßen die Mannschaft von Frankreich. Voilà l'équipe de la France. Voilà l'équipe de la France avec Reinalda Kiradi-Picot, Maureen Nizima, Laura Flessel-Kolovic, Sarah Gagnon. Der Gegner im Finale ist die Mannschaft von Ungarn. La deuxième équipe dans cette finale est l'équipe de la Hongrie. Für Ungarn fechten pour la Hongrie Julia Reves, Hormay, Reinalda Todt, Emilche Sass. Wir stellen Ihnen nun die Kampfrichter vor. Les arbitres de cette finale seront Norman Jens Jørgensen, David Zakavatse, Regis Guadavila. Es folgt nun die Übergabe der Epee-Medaille an den Weltcupsieger im Damen-Degen-Mannschaftswettbewerb. Voilà la remise de la médaille de la Fédération internationale d'escrime pour l'équipe gagnante de la Coupe du Monde.
We call him the Bear.
The Bear, and is that some kind of reflection of his personality or just his general physique?
A little bit of both.
Okay. So let's talk about these teams a little bit here. We've got France now. You say you know the Hungarian team a little bit more, but the French team, fairly famous team with some fairly famous players on it. We see these guys quite a bit. Any of the French players in particular stand out to you?
Well, of course, Laura Flessel. She's changed the sport. Actually, I think her way of fencing and what she's done in the media in France and internationally has really helped women's épée become the strongest weapon, I think, of all three of them. So.
She's very recognizable.
Yeah. Every time when I was living in France, actually, and I would take a taxi. If I was when I was living in Canada and I'd take a taxi, they would tell me, "Oh, are you a golfer?" Because I'd have this big bag.
Oh, right,
and then in France, they'd say, "Oh, are you a fencer? Do you know Laura Fossell?"
Immediately, yeah, right. I believe her likeness appeared on things like McDonald's food trays, and sure, get out there a little bit. So, a pretty famous team, the Hungarian team. Any standouts for you among the Hungarians?
They're a really homogenous team. That's the thing that's so dangerous about them, is that no one is a real superstar on the team, but nobody is a really weak link. So every match is dangerous, and they can do comebacks or hold their own with any one of the four girls.
The Hungarian mentality, or training, I guess, seems to be very much focused on playing a slow and steady game.
They're intelligent. They're really intelligent girls. So.
Not necessarily super flashy, as you might see some of the moves from the French team. They can be a little bit more flashy. But the Hungarian team, like I say, usually sticks with what they're doing, and without a tendency to get too wrapped up in things or too upset. We'll see how it goes tonight, of course, with the gold medal on the line. Of course, we're coming to you from Leipzig, Germany, as I mentioned to you, and we are brought to you by WCSN, the World Championship Sports Network. On WCSN.com in cooperation with Fencing Pictures at fencingpictures.tv and Fencing Channel at fencingchannel.com. And we'll begin the team event today in this first period with Flessel. Did you say Flessel or Flessel?
I think in French they say Flessel.
Flessel, of course. And against her opponent now...
Heinika Tot.
You've got it pretty well. So you've been there now.
I've been taking some Hungarian lessons.
Good
the
for
first
you.
thing is how to pronounce the names, because they're very confusing.
I'm going to leave the names to you. It's confused me my whole life, and you can't help when you're in fencing to be reading about various Hungarian trainers, and you sort of skip over the names as you did when you were in grade school reading books.
And it's almost worse with the women, because if they get married, they tend to keep both names. So it's Flessel Kolovic, actually.
And does it make you wonder now if, in the event that her daughter, let's say, gets married someday, and someone else has a hyphenated name, what do?
That's when they have to add extra material to the back of the fencing jacket.
That's how are we going to fit that? Yeah, hers barely fits as it is. Already, Hungarian team up 1-0 here.
It was a nice opening attack on Laura's preparation. That's the thing. I assume that the Hungarians will try to just go really direct and catch the French on timing, because the French do a lot of preparation, and the Hungarians, I'm sure, will just try to go as direct as they can.
And we'll always see those a moment here to fix the hair or fix the mask. Perhaps the Velcro let go there for a second. She'll have to fix that up again. But we're always looking for those toe touches from Flessel. We'll see her going down toward the toe quite a bit, I imagine, during the course of the day.
I would look for those from Toth, too, because that's how she managed to win the match against Canada. She hit my foot on the last hit. And then, that was nice.
The wonderful thing is I sense no bitterness about that whatsoever.
I'll get her in training.
Tough to fence your teammates, isn't it? Or
training
club
partners,
mates.
yeah.
In this case.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because you know each other a little bit more, so you have to be extra smart.
And the score is level now 1-1. As I remind you every time we have a broadcast, we are in the team events. So we are going to a total of 45 points, or 9 rounds, with 3 minutes of fencing time in each round. And we'll switch athletes at the end of every round. Now, the round will end when we reach the 3 minutes of time, or if we achieve a score of 5 points at each level. So the first round, 5 points. The second, 10. The third, 15, and so on. We're fencing the epee. It's a point thrust weapon only. Nice remise, but that was quite a hard hit she took there. You get up and dust yourself off. The toe touch converts it into a very nice touch on the leg, I think.
Yeah, that was beautiful. She does that well. Remise is underneath. And Toth likes to take the blade. So if Laura displaces her hand like that, it's much easier for her to remise. So it's pretty tricky and intelligent on Laura's behalf.
Intelligence. Everybody's got it except for me. So the epee is a point thrust weapon only. You can hit with the sides all you like, but it won't do you any good. You won't get any points. The whole body is target, as we mentioned before about Laura Flessel, that we see her going to the toe quite a bit. Seems to be a favorite attack of hers, and she uses it actually almost all the time. And in delicate and dangerous situations, she'll break that out as well, which some people might think is a little too daring.
Yeah, she's not the tallest girl in the circuit, so it's actually it's a good move for her, because if you're tall and you go for the foot, you're going to have a good chance of getting hit on the hand. But she just squeaks in there with her speed.
Stays under the radar, as it were.
Exactly.
Now, I've been trying to solve a mystery all week, and myself, as I go out and I coach my fencers, this seems to develop, although I never teach it. Why is it that epee fencers, when given an entire strip that nears 6 feet wide, have to fence on the very edge? Why is it that epee fencers feel compelled to be drawn to the edge?
That's interesting, because I'm assuming that they think that it's cutting off some of the target. For instance, nobody could go, Laura pushes herself to the left, so nobody can hit her on the right. So if people try to hit her on that side, they'll be off the piste before they have the chance to land the touch. But a good tactic to do, especially with a left-hander, is to just go to the opposite side of the piste. So people don't use the width of the piste nearly as much as they probably should.
And we'll get our next two fencers up. The first round has ended. In this case, ended with the expiration of 3 minutes of fencing time. And of course, fencing time is between when the referee says fence and the referee says halt. So the clock doesn't run all the time. And the score was 2-1, so they never quite achieved the 5 points that they would be capable of achieving in the first round. But par for the course in women's epee. It's very rare that they do achieve those rounds. I would suspect we probably won't see this tournament today go to 45 points that they're capable of going to. What do you think about that?
It would surprise me if it did. The only way it would go to 45 is if someone is ahead in the last round, and then someone has to just keep charging and attacking.
It has to be a rush. Of course, there's a great deal of strategy that goes along with the time and the score, and that gets built as we go. Right now, however, there's only a 1 point difference between the two teams, so no one really has a big advantage yet, although it's always nice to go into the second round. It's always nice to go into the next round with the lead.
Indeed. Now, this is an interesting matchup because Király Picó is a former Hungarian, and she used to be on the Hungarian national team. She never qualified for the Olympics with them, but so she knows these girls, I'm sure, very well. And I hear that since she moved to France, her style has changed a little bit, of course, because she's picked up some French tricks, but rest assured that these girls know each other very well.
So she was born in Budapest and is right now
and
7th in the world, as a matter of fact. Was 10th the other day in the individual event here at the World Championships. Now, interestingly enough, now we have the right-hand, left-hand combination here, and they're also hugging that side of the strip, as we saw with the opponents, with a different arrangement the moment before.
Yeah. I know that Kira likes to fence on that side, so I'm sure, I assume Horma is just following her lead. Might be a little more tactical to go to move to the other side, but
I'll solve the mystery yet. Now, has any coach ever said to you, do me a favor and really hug the edge of the strip?
Sure, yeah, all the time.
Okay.
And I think of it as well with when I watch people, I find out, okay, are they bad against left-handers, are they bad against right-handers, and then adjust thusly. It's just a part of the tactic. What about you? Do you hug one side or the other?
Well, I never did much fencing, I guess you'd say. So the fact is I guess I was a middle-of-the-road kind of guy. But my experience was in the foil, and so I have to admit that if I had someone who really liked to flesh against me quite a bit, I would hug the edge of the strip and force them to be off the strip before they'd have a chance to complete their flesh. So, I think the strategy is there, but it seems endemic in the epee. Says almost every epee fencer you'll see will immediately go to the side of the strip and kind of hug it there, and make the referee's job difficult, because of course the referee has to keep an eye on whether or not you're on the strip.
Right.
And sometimes you've got most of your feet hanging over the edge of the strip there, and you can see the referee's attention divided between the fencing and watching whether or not the fencer's on the strip. Yeah. But more a case of mild curiosity on my part.
So what it looks like is that Horma is setting up another hit to the hand. She hit Király on the hand the last time, and Horma's quite good at that. So we'll see if there's a similar action this time.
There, and of course, Hungarians, as we were talking about before, tend to take their time and set up. They don't tend to rush anything if they don't have to, of course. A very steady team. As we approach the end of the second round, and these guys are staying in there pretty good. Normally by now, fencers are sort of backing up with the score about level. Perhaps the Hungarian fencer thinking she might have a shot to pick up that hand again. But now they'll back away and let the second period come to its end.
That was a 1-1 match.
A 1-1 match indeed. So no advantage gained by either side. But France does go into the third period with a 1-point lead. Of course, each team has 3 players and, in fact, an alternate, should they choose to use the alternate. And each of the 3 players from each team will fence each of the 3 players from the other team. And as a result, we get 9 rounds of fencing so that everyone faces everyone else.
This match will go to 15 if they have the energy to go all the way up to 15.
All the way there. Yeah. And of course they may at any time. We're trying to get to that level, so 5 touches each round, and we're in the 3rd round, so we should go to 15 touches. And if they can do it in 3 minutes of time, they are certainly welcome to do it. As a matter of fact, stranger things have happened, so you never quite know what will go on. Nisima now getting up on the left. Again, another sort of well-known face of French fencing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has a bronze medal from the last Olympics in Athens, I believe. And she's won, I think she won World Championships. No, she came second at World Championships in Cuba. So she has a long and glorious tradition of winning. Right. So we'll see how this match.
It's not a bad tradition to have.
It's not, is it?
She's 14th. Been worse ones. Yeah, certainly there have. My family would be absolute proof of that. So 14th in the world right now for Maureen Nisima. She was 17th in the individual event the other day. And second, 2003 World Championships, I think you were mentioning. And in the 2002, she was first, the 2002 World Champion. Tries to make a remise there, but falls victim to the riposte.
That was very nice. Juliana's really good at the pericart riposte, so Nisima will have to find a way around that. Nisima has probably one of the fastest hands in fencing, and she's able to get around the blade quite easily with feint disengages, so we'll see if she's able to use that today.
It's remarkable how fast she changes the tempo. All of a sudden, she's there, and then the next second, she's made a lunge at a remarkable speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has a lot of natural speed. Yeah.
Her opponent is number 26 in the world, finished 25th in the individuals just the other day. Everybody seems to look forward to the team events where you, after the individual events are done, everybody seems to be excited. You know, every athlete that I talked to said, yeah, there's still the team coming up.
Right, it's their chance at redemption. And it's always fun to do it as a group. You know, there's something about winning as a group that is so much more glorious than winning individually.
Now, you fenced this Hungarian team earlier, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And if you had to pick out one person that was an imminent threat, who do you think the French should be aware of?
Of course, in fencing, it's all about style. So even if the Hungarians had number 1 in the world on their team, I wouldn't say that they are necessarily a threat because it totally depends on the style of the person in front of you. But I know that Toth has the most... she has the most diverse footwork, so it's possible that she could be a real threat.
And that's the second time that's happened to Nisima. Yes. She's still trying to work her way into the distance a little bit and then launch that quick change of tempo, but it seems that her opponent is ready with that parry and riposte.
Yeah.
And again,
Juliana is backing up really nicely, so she's doing 2 steps back, and then by the time Nisima arrives and hopes to land the hit, Reyes has enough time to do the parry riposte. So.
We're a little more than halfway through this 3rd round, and I wonder if it would be a good strategy right now for Nisima to try to draw out some kind of offense from her opponent rather than trying to pursue it. It doesn't seem like offense was a wise idea for her right now.
I agree because they're both about the same size, so it's not like she would have a real disadvantage if Juliana attacked.
And there's the double touch. Epee fencing, unique in the world of fencing. We're made up of foil, epee, and saber, in that when 2 people hit each other and the lights both go on, both people get a touch. Right of way in foil and saber prevents that from happening. Only one person at a time may get a touch unless there's been something strange that's gone on with penalty cards. And strange things do happen all the time. Referees being a little picky. I was watching one of your team events today, as a matter of fact, Shireen, and noticed that the referee tossed out a touch. You were fencing against Korea.
Yes.
And tossed out a touch on you. There's a gorgeous touch.
That was beautiful.
So relaxed and so calm, right down to the toe.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very well fenced.
we'll have to watch the reaction of the Hungarian box over there. They kind of sat there with these kind of, quiet faces and nodded their heads a little bit.
Yeah, they're quite discreet. Takes a while for people to understand the culture when they first come to visit in Hungary because they think, oh, people are a little bit stone-faced here. But then once you understand that they're just discreet and quiet, then you realize the charm that is underneath. Because it's a culture that's similar to Canada, which is why I actually enjoy living there. Beautiful culture.
That's certainly been money for her so far, and it looks like Nisima has not yet registered in her brain that may not be the wisest course of action as she extends the Hungarian lead. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's a little punitive,
3 points
but
now.
It's a 3-point difference, and that can make all the
big.
difference in the world.
Nisima keeps going with the step lunge, and Juliana keeps seeing it and backing up twice, so Nisima doesn't have much of a chance to land that action.
Last couple of seconds here, the fencers will let it expire, and better for Nisima that the period. Better for Nisima that the period ended, and Hungarians now have a 3-point lead, and that can haunt you. We saw in the German men's Epee team get down a little bit the other night and stayed down against France. Never were able to make up the deficit, so you hate those early mistakes to haunt you for a long time.
Yeah, we were talking about that as a team today and how we just wanted to absorb the mistakes of the other person. We didn't want to let it get away from us. So we tried to keep the score really low in all of our team matches. And apparently that's what they're doing here now, is they can go in this next match up until 20 points.
And doubtful that they'll get there. They have 3 minutes of time. It's a very patient game. And as a matter of fact, they've got some rules out that they've really used at this World Championships about having people be too patient. They have this passivity rule, and they'll throw you out a penalty card and end the round if, in fact, you and your opponent refuse defense with one another. Now, how do you feel about that? Do you think they've been sending that out a little too soon? Does it take away an important strategy for epee fencing?
I think it's a bit of a detriment in the team event. I can understand in the individual, but in the team event, being passive is sometimes an important part of your game, because if you have, say, if the team isn't very homogenous and you do have that weak link, then you just want to have the ability to just wait that match out. But if you're forced defense, then it just means that the teams have to be a little bit more even. So I think it's not my favorite rule. Let's say that.
Nice beat attack there from Pirelli.
That was beautiful.
And moves in quite quick. It erases one of the points that the French have found themselves behind by. Now a 2-point deficit.
It was a nice remise through Toth's cart, because Toth has a very nice cart, and it's hard to get around that. So Kirai thought, why go around it? I'll just go through it.
Go right through it. As a matter of fact, that's exactly how I treat stoplights. Which leads to my land through prison record on the field. Again, she makes that action work. Now, this is the action that, not the same action, but this kind of offense, which you're actually seeing more and more now in Epee. It's becoming a much more offensive game. Well, the men's game particularly is becoming much more offensive.
The men's game is very aggressive. I was watching at the team event the other day, and I was shocked because I haven't watched a men's event in, I guess, a year since the Olympics. And I was shocked at how aggressive it was.
Isn't it amazing?
Brute force.
Yeah, it really is. And I wonder if we'll see any of that spill over into the women's game. Well, the Hungarians seem to be sending a clear message to the French that they're not the only ones that can make that toe touch and get away with it.
Toth and Rebes are trained by the same coach, and he's one of the ones in Hungary who really works on the toe hits, so it's no surprise that they're the ones that are landing it. So we'll see if Kirai returns the favor.
Big parry made by the French fencer that time, and it makes her opponent think that there's time to make a remise there, a reprise, and get the point on. But in fact, they come up with a double touch. They each get a touch. And while the score advances, there's no significant change in the difference. 10-8, the French still trail by 2. We've been lucky to have a lot of German fencers get into the cycle of that touch. She liked that one quite a bit.
She finally got her cart parry repost.
Yes, she did, and she was very happy about it. And that serene Hungarian exterior now starting to show. They were up on their feet in the box. Toth seems to be able to stay in her side of the strip, and she's quite happy there, making touches while sort of compelling the French fencer to come down on that side of the strip.
For two good reasons, probably, because she's good defensively and they're ahead.
In their head.
It's a good tactic.
The burden is on the French to get out there and make the attack.
That was beautiful. Kieran maintains her balance very well there, because once you get, after one attack, it's hard to maintain your balance. So
and what a gorgeous lunge she has.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. French still doing their bit to erase this deficit that they've been working from, as a matter of fact.
Within 2 points now. The thing about épée is that, especially women's épée, is that it's all about body language. And I know the men are a bit more aggressive, and so a lot of it is about testosterone. But in the women's side, you really see people trying to force people to react. And it's a little bit similar to, I guess, how you see that in culture. You see it in women's culture. Pushing and reading the body language. And it's a little bit more subtle, which might appear a little more slow. But if you watch the fine points and you just watch the body language of the fencers, you can see, almost predict who's going to get the point.
Well, as a coach myself, it's I can say this, although my students listening at home will have a bone to pick with me when I get back, but I always find it a little more interesting to coach and train women fencers, because they tend to think a lot more creatively than the men, especially the young men.
Young men
who think that it's pretty much must go hit opponent. And that's what they tend to do. Now, of course, guys, don't feel too bad. I love to work with you as well. And,
well, the thing my coach has been working on with me is getting me to hit hard enough. So we train all the time, just actually, he says, you won't hit me hard enough, Shara, you must go.
Yeah.
So I guess there's also the downside of, the woman's approach to sport.
Well,
Can't all be finesse. Sometimes it does have to be that pure aggression.
Yeah, you have to throw it in there every now and again. It is something that I run into with my students, and they'll finally hit me in the way that I want them to hit me in the lesson. They'll stop. Oh, I'm sorry. You're not sorry. This
I wonder
is what
if
we're
a man taking a lesson has ever apologized to the coach.
No, I don't think I've ever. I have to say, I don't think I've ever had one of my students apologize to me, and I've been hit in some pretty nasty places. And usually, when you get hit in the nastier places, and you say to them, you know what, I'd rather that you didn't hit me there again. Immediately, the next action they do, they drive you there again.
It's a little bit of the stress too.
Yeah, I think so.
Don't go there. Don't think of the pink elephants.
Well,
what are you thinking of? Pink elephants.
Of course, and it's the type of thing you have to be careful of course, as a coach, because a lot of coaches tend to focus on the negative. Don't do this.
Exactly.
And they get their fencers thinking about exactly what they don't want them to think about. So try to be a bit more positive about that. So here we are in round number 5 out of 9 rounds, and it's amazing how fast the tournament goes by. You think you have 9 rounds of fencing, you think you got plenty of time, and here we are in number 5.
I agree.
And by 7, 8, and what lovely! That was beautiful. Do you think that she offered her toe as the target a little bit to draw that attack, and then just this gorgeous flesh?
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure that was her plan, and it
tricky.
was beautifully executed. It wouldn't surprise me if Laura made a comeback on this one, knowing the two fencer styles.
Would you pick her as the strongest fencer on the French team?
Once again, it depends so much on style. She has so much experience and a lot of fencing intelligence, so in that way, I guess she's the strongest, because she just seems to win at the big events a lot.
She's got a lot of focus, and she you rarely see her get upset. You'll see her express some emotion, but you rarely see her get into that kind of negative upset that some athletes will get into, where they start to hurt themselves with it. You can see her get frustrated. You can see her, but to her it seems to translate into more energy, more focus.
Yeah. That's very true. Everyone has a different approach. So some people, they have to be calm and enjoy it, and I think Laura's That was beautiful head.
And again, we talked about those toe touches. She loves to make those toe touches, and I feel sometimes she'll try to make them, but it's probably not the wisest thing in the world to do, but a gorgeous stop touch made by the Hungarian fencer. Julia, now how do you say that last name?
Juliana Reves.
Juliana, I wasn't even close on
Juliana
Julia.
Reves, yes.
Well, I'm American and I want it my way.
That's my Hunglish.
You're Hunglish.
Half Hungarian, half English.
We're returning to favor now. It's funny, these two fencers going back and forth with toe touches here. And it's like they're taking turns at the strategy and the counter strategy.
That was not good timing from Juliana at all, unfortunately, and Laura just capitalized on it. Laura's not obviously she's not extremely tall, but she has a really high hand when she hits on top, and it seems like people just fall short a lot, even though she doesn't have a height advantage.
How often do you get to fence Laura Flessel?
I fenced her in team events a few times. I never trained with her in Paris. She was at a different club, and I fenced her once individually in Nîmes at World Championships in the top 8.
Right.
Yeah. And that's about it. But we watch her so much, it feels like you fence.
Of course. Well, she is 33 years old, and she won gold at the first Olympics, which featured women's epee, I believe. So
in Atlanta.
Kind of like the United States is Marielle Zagunis winning the gold medal in the women's saber at Athens in 2004.
That was Cutter on the line, under the hand.
Has in fact leveled the game now at 13-13. Great body control. She was able to duck underneath the weapon of her Hungarian opponent and keeps the point away from hitting her. As I mentioned earlier, you can get hit with the edges, but it certainly won't turn the light on, and that is the mission.
All it does is make your opponent upset. Now they seem to be going for the blade a little bit more. There was more absence of blade at the beginning, and now not really in his favor that one either.
She wants to have her weapon checked in epee. The weapon can stop working, and you might never know. That doesn't show any symptoms besides the fact that when you hit somebody, the light doesn't come on. And so oftentimes epee fencers will have their weapons checked by the referee just to make sure that it works. In the event that it didn't work, the touch that was scored could be annulled, and that's never a bad thing. These events, as we've been mentioning, do come down to 1 point almost all the time, so that 1 point makes a big deal of difference. Don't forget, we'll be making broadcasts all week. Well, actually, it's getting short now. Only one more broadcast day tomorrow, so I hope you'll join us. Join us on WCSN.com to see fencing live. On fencingchannel.tv, we have daily summaries, podcasts, pictures, and a blog of the 2005 World Championships. I love saying the word blog.
Unbelievable that all this is taking place for fencing. It's a dream come true for many people.
Isn't it amazing?
It's incredible.
We're very proud. We're very proud to do it, and I hope that it's getting the reception that it deserves to get. We would love to see fencing start breaking out of its shell. There's no reason why this wouldn't be a sport viewed by millions of people. It's fascinating. Last few seconds left, and it looks like Vassell will keep pressure on the Hungarian fencer until the clock runs out.
That was a very good overall tactic by Vassell.
She has, in fact, brought her team back into the dominant position, now ahead by 1 point as they go into the next period. Nisima taking the strip. So, Shireen, tell us a little bit about your book. You've got a book that's published?
I do. It's called Running with Swords, and my own personal little subtitle is like running with scissors, but more dangerous. So it's a light comedic look at life behind the mask and what it's like to train and live as an Olympic athlete and all the joys and pains that come along with that. So you never get to see the behind the scenes of getting lost in the metro on your way to the hostel in Sweden because you can't afford to stay at the big hotel.
That's right.
So this gives you a little glimpse into what it's like to be a true amateur athlete.
And meantime, the Italian team shows up in a limousine.
With their own coffee makers.
That's right, yeah, exactly.
That might be a little bit of a stretch, but we certainly feel that way sometimes.
That's right. So Running with Swords, and you can jump on Amazon.com or run to your local bookstore and have yourself a good read. I look forward to reading it myself.
I can't wait. It was a pleasure to write, so I would love for people to read it.
Another thing that we're doing here, Fencing Pictures is doing here, is that we're providing the new slow motion service for the FIU.
That's really what I think will change fencing if we're going to broadcast it like this, because it allows people to see the hit, and because the common man cannot see the hits. Right. And that's why I just, whenever I recommend, whenever I'm talking to people who don't know fencing very well, I say just watch the body language. Just try to watch their positions and how aggressive they're being, because to watch the sword is too difficult.
It is too fast. And another good way to watch fencing, if you're at home and you're new to fencing, is to try to pick out only one athlete to watch. Kind of perceive what that athlete is trying to get done. Nisima, very happy with that flesh, and a gorgeous flesh.
Beautiful feint disengage.
You just cannot fault the technique of these French fencers when they are on. And I say they're on, but the score is pretty well level. The French ahead only by 1 point, 2 minutes in this 6th round. But when they make the actions the way I think they're taught to make the actions, they certainly do look nice.
They do.
And they are effective.
French fencing is all about finesse, so when they have that, it's gorgeous to watch.
It all comes together.
I'm surprised actually that Hormai is pushing so much. It's I don't know. We'll see how the tactic plays out, but it wouldn't be my choice.
What sort of strategies do you think you'd recommend against Nisima with the score at this stage?
Well, I guess what Juliana Veras did against her was great, forcing her to come and pushing her a bit, but doing the double step back on Nisima's step lunge. They're just getting a little bit too close, and Nisima feels like she can go straight.
That's right.
Direct. And
that kind of haste can be a big error, because right now there's not much of a hole to dig out of. 1 point is certainly not unachievable. So it can be a big mistake to rush a little bit and give up several points and dig your hole.
Yeah. Especially against, both of these teams are so strong that a comeback of any extent would be just extremely difficult.
It's hard to picture.
Yeah.
I'd say we're seeing a little bit of emotion from Nisima. What did you think?
That makes me laugh, because I know as a fencer, and I know each person I'm sure is different, but when I see somebody react so emotionally, it means that they have so much built up inside them. So I'm sure she's a little bit stressed out right now.
I'd say she's a little bit nervous. That's kind of a release of sort of the valve release for all the steam that's built up inside, and really starts to show on a double touch. It really didn't make all that much difference, so there must be something else cooking inside.
Yeah. I guess if you're ahead, a double touch is always a good thing.
Sure, yeah, sure. Sends a little signal to her opponent, though, that she may be a little bit more worried than she lets on.
Yeah, that's true. The feeling a big attack is coming from Nisima.
Will he count the remise? He says she's well off the strip by that time.
Yeah, it was her second hit, so...
The Hungarian fencer wants the distance, claims that when you are fleshed against, you stay still. They are starting a little too close, I'd say.
I'd say so too.
And that was Nisima making sure that she wasn't going to be pushed off the strip. 17-17.
That was good. That was a smart tactic by Hormai. Pushed her and just stood her ground and let Nisima come in and skewer herself, as we like to say.
With nowhere to go, she had to come up with something, and so you throw out your best hand and you try your best, and that's what pops up. 17-17, so it's anybody's game right now, and we're coming right to the end of the 6th round, and we'll go into the 7th, 8th, and 9th rounds, where the teams have been ranged, hopefully, to the most clever way that they can. So usually you'll see a stronger, and a strongest fencer. Of course, the last fencer would love to have a nice big buffer to go into, because there's an awful lot of pressure on that last fencer. Now, when you fenced today against the Hungarian team, you were the last fencer?
Yes, and I was 2 points ahead. And sometimes that doesn't work in your favor, only because I felt like I had to wait. I felt like I couldn't go out and be aggressive, which is a tactical mistake. So, because then when I was down, when she equalized the points by hitting me twice when I was just being too defensive. And then she went ahead by 1 touch, and then all of a sudden another touch, and then I did 2 beautiful flushes to come back and tie it up. And had I done those flushes at the beginning, who knows? It would have been a little different. So
something that I frequently mention to my students: you're always fencing to make points. You're not
Exactly.
fencing to hold on.
Yeah.
And many students of mine, actually, and many students, of course, in fencing across the world, have that tendency. You get ahead and you say, if I can just hold on to this, and they stop trying to make points. Now, I'm not saying that's what you did in your bout, but...
No, well, it's part of it for sure. I was trying to hold the lead instead of trying to fence, basically.
Trying to actually fence, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to say in fencing that fortune favors the bold. So I like people to take risks, and I'd rather that my personal students would lose bouts taking risks rather than trying to play it too safe and win bouts in an overly conservative fashion.
And it's never too fun to win overly conservatively.
No, you know,
you
when
never feel the glory
the
of actually
clock
doing
runs
your
out.
best.
Yeah, it's not quite as exciting as it is finally scoring that final touch.
Exactly.
Well, these two fencers certainly don't want to mix it up, so they're staying back a little bit from each other. 17-17, and dangerous in Epee to be the one to make the attack. And so they are really keeping a wide distance, not engaging too much. And we'll see what the strategy is here. Sometimes the strategy will literally be not to fence.
It seems that way because it seems like, well, there we go.
Will he count
I
that?
don't think so.
He says no touch, that I called halt before the touch was scored. I don't know how I felt about that one. I kind of felt she had already made her action toward the foot. He said halt, she hit. It wasn't like she started after he said halt. And
Yeah.
Kinda
He
seems
could have
like
said
that.
with the halt.
yeah. Kind of seems like that touch should stand. But Hungary not too upset by it. So I guess they must agree. And in close again, and this time Corral comes up as the winner, skipping down the strip. Looks like well, this is the second time she's forced this kind of distance. So it looks like that's what she wants to get out of the Hungarian fencer, and the French are now up by 1 point. Let's see if she stays with the strategy now that she's got a little bit of a lead.
Yeah, when she pushes Juliana like that back into her 2 meters, Juliana feels forced to come forward. So, and Kira has a very nice parry riposte. So, and obviously remise as we've seen.
Now you have the unique distinction of we mentioned that you represent Canada when you fence, but you have lived and trained in Paris, and you have lived and trained in Hungary.
Yes.
So, watching the French and Hungarian teams fence, you got one that you're rooting for?
I prefer the style of the Hungarian approach to fencing, which seems a little more tactical and a little more. It's just more my style. So that's my preference. Plus, it's always nice to see your training partners do well. So I would love for them to be world champions. Then I could say I train with world champions.
Well, certainly, and everything that they bring back to the club, bring back to training.
Yeah.
Every time they take a step up, that's a benefit to you.
And then when we go home, first day of training, they'll buy the champagne.
Yeah. Which is nice too. Sure.
Nice.
It's not always about the sport. Well, the Hungarians trail by 2 points now, and let's make that 3. That's another weapon check here, just to make sure that everything's in working order. The referee will look things over and punch the top of the blade. And she says, well, I wish you weren't working in this case, but the weapon is working fine. Touch stands 20-17. This is, in fact, round 7, so 35 points is the cap. But with under a minute, we'll never reach that.
This is Juliana's last match of the team.
That's right. Each fencer that comes up, it will be their last one of the match.
Sometimes when it's your last match, you feel pressure like you want to make another hit. You just want to do your best. And if I was Juliana's coach, I would probably tell her to lay off a bit now, because coming back from 3 points is much easier than coming back from 4 or 5. She doesn't seem too comfortable fencing against Twainy.
And again, that distance right next to each other certainly favors the French fencer in this pairing. She's been getting in nice and close. It's a nice opposition riposte in the low line, isn't it?
It's beautiful. She has such good balance on her legs.
A little bit later, we'll be watching the men's saber team finals. As a matter of fact, I'll be joined by Ivan Lee from the U.S. men's saber team, who had probably the best result of the men's saber team history today at the World Championships. We'll talk with him a little bit.
I saw their match against the Ukraine, I think. They lost just by 1 touch.
That was tough. We'll talk with Ivan about that. In fact, he was the closer, and they started out with the lead on that one. So I'm sure he'll have some stories to tell us about that. Well, this has turned into a little bit more of a spread for France. They can start feeling a little bit more comfortable. 21-17, and only 2 periods left, obviously.
They have Horma as their anchor. Wow.
And
Never seen Horma close a team.
Interesting. What do you think the idea is there?
I guess she must feel comfortable against the French fencers. Or they might have assumed that they would have a lead, because Horma's greatest advantage is her defense. It's very hard to hit her.
So maybe they felt they'd try to build a bit of a lead and then let the French fencers dash themselves against the...
And also, maybe Toth is very good against Nissima. So maybe they thought this would be the match where they could do some damage against the French.
And things do usually change. Like things are usually planned like that. I'm sorry. Things are usually planned like that. There's a certain order that you have to follow, but you can plug your fencers in. And one order is very nice. You get to start and finish with a strong fencer.
Oh, that's my least favorite.
Oh, you don't like that so much, huh?
No. Because this way your strong fencer gets to go second. So if you're behind, you get the advantage of the. You can tell the first fencer, who's maybe a little weaker, just take your time, and then you have more points to work with.
I think Nissima made that stop touch on the arm so quickly. I don't think she realized that she had made it. I think she was continuing to fence here, not even realizing the light had gone on.
Well, being a coach, you probably tell your fencers never stop until
that's right,
until you see the lights or until you hear the judge yelling, "Oh,
stop! You have to stop now." And expands the lead now by 5 points, and that's starting to get a little bit dangerous. We've got 2.5 minutes left in this round, and only one more round to go. So we're going to have to see some pressure here by the Hungarians. They're going to have to start making the points. Of course, double touches will favor the French at this point. They can double touch away with no problem whatsoever, and they can double touch their way to World Championship gold medal. Have you gotten to see much of the city here in Leipzig?
No, I was at St. Thomas Church. I'm not sure what it was.
Oh, right.
With the one where Bach was the cantor.
That's right.
And
That's
it was beautiful.
Beautiful church. I went inside it myself the other day, and that's an understated statue of Bach outside, wouldn't you say?
I know. He's such a great man.
It's a wow, quite a hit there. Fencers bash into one another, and bell guards and blades and fencers flying. Sometimes fencers can go down on the ground in a, shall we say, theatrical way.
A little Shakespearean. And the raised piece isn't very safe either, I must say. I've never understood why they have a raised piece.
It's kind of interesting. You're just dying for someone to break an ankle, but I mean, it's a nice spectacle and all, but things starting to look a little bit bleak for the Hungarian fencers now. She can't afford.
Nissima's hand was so fast on that. The retreat and the fast disengage on Toth's attempt to take her blade.
And of course, Toth can't afford to rush. Even though she has to start getting something done, she can't afford to be hasty. So this is where épée fencing really shows its character, because here's a situation where we, as you mentioned earlier, Shireen, where the scores can start advancing dramatically.
Yes.
And they're almost 10 points ahead now, 26-18. So
wow.
Good 8 points ahead. And
this I don't think I would have predicted. I don't think I would have predicted Nissima getting this many points, but Toth seems to be just half a second behind.
Double touches, a lot of negative body language from Toth there. She's been slapping her leg and looking frustrated. You know her. Do you think that's a sign of her trying to get herself psyched up, or do you really think that's a sign of her being frustrated?
Probably a little of both, because she's a pretty emotional person. So it's not a bad thing. It adds to her fencing a lot. Gives her a passion for it. But right now, I'm sure
she's looking for answers, and she wants that weapon checked. Referee will check it out, make sure. She tried to make a parry and riposte. She took a circle 4, tried to make a riposte, and didn't come up a winner. And she's going to have to start making something happen here. So any chance of returning to North America anytime soon?
Well, I have a book tour coming up in 2 days after this World Championships. I fly off to Vancouver and work my way east across Canada,
Very nice.
signing books and talking to media and seeing some family along the way.
Very nice, very nice.
Something's got to change here.
Yeah, this is a desperate situation, becoming much more desperate, and every touch the French make, another nail in the coffin of the Hungarian hopes for gold.
And getting 10 points, no matter how on Hormai is, getting 10 points on Laura is not the easiest thing in the world.
It is a difficult thing to do, and we'll have to see what the closer for the Hungarian team can get done, although she's going to come in with a very difficult path ahead of her.
It seems like Tota's always trying to hit low on Nisima. And Nisima's just finishing up high.
She is, and her
It's a
confidence
good note
is...
for the next time, I think.
Feel free to take notes. Yeah, definitely. You can see Nisima's confidence growing as Tote's confidence declines, and that is the way of fencing.
This is the amazing thing about fencing, and it's so style oriented because Nisima just didn't seem to be able to do a thing against Redes, and then now against Tote, she's just owning the match.
That's right. And actually, I find the team events so interesting because you get these combinations. I know a lot of people find the individual matches more interesting, but I find them both very fascinating for different reasons. But the team dynamic, I find amazingly fascinating. I find myself more watching the box where the teammates are sitting than I find myself watching the fencing. Kind of curious what's going on behind the scenes there.
Right.
And they'll, I think, let this period expire and put all their hopes in the last period and their closing fencer. Nisima.
Relieving some tension?
Relieving some tension, and she is done, as a matter of fact, and has done her job and done it well. Puts the French team up by quite a bit now. What do you think, 11 touches? Any chance?
I have seen crazier, but it's difficult to ask of anyone.
Seen the pyramids of Egypt.
I've actually seen 3 hits in 2 seconds, if you can believe it.
3 hits in 2 seconds. I can believe it, actually. We had an experience similar to that earlier this weekend.
Really?
Yeah, it was in a men's game, and you wouldn't have believed it. There was just an amazing amount. There was, I believe, 1 second. Now, we have to bear in mind that there's the human element of starting and stopping the clock, but there was 1 second on the clock. 2 hits were made in that time.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. I saw it in the Chinese girl, Wei Wei Shen, made 3 flushes on Britta Heidemann at World Championships back in Lisbon a few years ago. And we were shocked. And we were watching the human element too, thinking there was some timing mistake, but as far as we could see, it was perfectly timed. So
really remarkable. Well, here it is. This is pretty much do or die for Hungary if they want to go home with a gold medal today. And they've got a little less than 3 minutes to try to achieve 11 touches and at least get the game 11.
These two met in the top 8 of this competition just a few days ago in the individual, and Laura put out Hormai to advance to the medal rounds. So, and it was a very close match. So, I wouldn't assume it to be a blowout. But
well, at this point, there's such a deficit carried by Hungary that it may not make for the best fencing. Now, when you get into a team event and you face a fencer in the individual event, do you tend to take that immediate history? Let's say you did really well against them and you're seeing them in a team event. Do you tend to feel, all right, well, I should do well against them? Or do you really go based more on your long-term experience with a fencer?
It's always easier to take your individual experience and apply it to team than it is to take team experience and apply it to individual. Because I know that when I fence against people who I beat regularly and I come up against them in team, at least I know what to do because I know how they're going to fence. But when someone is in a team event, like right now, Laura isn't attacking, but she's very good at attacking, but she doesn't have to.
That's right.
So if Hormai was to take this for her next experience with Laura and say, oh, Laura doesn't attack, that would be
a mistake.
Yeah,
definitely would be.
Yeah. So it's always easier to go the other way. So we do take advice from our individual matches, and we share it with each other amongst the team too. We say, okay, this worked for me, so it might work for you, and keep it in the back of your mind. If what you're doing doesn't work out, you can always try this. So it's all about sharing information.
Wow.
just jumping in on her timing.
And expands the lead 34-21 and just under 2 minutes to go.
Do you think it'll get to 45?
You know, that's actually at this point, you never know. The more the Hungarians rush, I mean, it very well could. But after a point, you've, and I'm not sure where you'd say that point is, you've really got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You know, with this kind of deficit, I'd say that point has been reached.
Yeah, I think Toth felt that in her last match.
Yeah.
In the 8th match. She felt that point probably after about 3 hits against her. She thought, oh, I just may as well go.
That's right.
It appeared that way anyways. Well, the French have fenced this very intelligently. They had a great tactic.
And might see, very well could see, I'll make a bold prediction, very well could see the French team earning the gold medal, becoming world championships, and that would give them the men's and the women's. Well, that was a nice touch, nice little touch.
Yeah.
Guess I'm not letting it get to her too much. I'm pretty sure she's comfortable letting that one roll off her shoulder, which is in fact where she got hit.
Being ahead by 13 points has its slight mental advantages.
Sure, yeah. I would have actually been a heck of a fencer if I had a 13-point advantage. Referee corrected.
If we ever fence together, I promise to give you one.
Thanks.
We used to fence.
I'd like to say strongly that I don't need your charity, but the fact is that I really do.
I know, it's sad but true, because when we would fence with some guys, they would have a 5-point. We would have a 5-point advantage, and we'd still not manage to win sometimes. Nice. It seems when she gets in close and then just finishes direct, Laura doesn't have time to back up. So if she can continue to do that,
she's got to do quite a bit. She's got 12 points to make up here. And a minute and 20 seconds, we should be able to do the math on that. She's got to get a touch every 10 seconds. Is that the case? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, Laura's very good at doubling out, though, so I'm sure it won't be too much of a problem for her here. Probably just start attacking into Hormai's preparation just to... very nice.
No touch, but the body language is not good for Hormai. She's,
she's a very, very dry personality, and she shows almost no emotion. She has a lot of amazing things about her, but she's not the one to scream. I remember seeing her win World Cups time and time again, and she just has a slight smile on at the end. So she's a great person.
I like the drama, but I do admire that about a fencer. Fabrice Genet is kind of like that. He's kind of a stone-faced fencer.
Yeah.
I admire that.
Probably helps them with their calm. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, she's coming up with quite a few single lights now. And which would be good, except it's 27-37, so that means there are 10 touches to score with only 58 seconds. However, if she can achieve them the way that she has been, I mean, there's a slight possibility that could work. What would you think about seeing?
There we go.
I was just going to say.
That was so intelligent. I can't even. That was great, because I'm sure she just felt that Laura was like thinking, I've got to change it. I've got to go. I just want to go. It was so smart. Hormai's an architect, so she has good construction abilities. Here she's constructing her points very well. Interior designer, actually. Interior design architect type of thing. And she just finished her school this year, so.
And they do reach for the cards quite a bit, so. Core with jostling, I believe you'd have to say, for Laura Flessel.
I'd say avoiding the knees.
Yeah. With her stature, I'm not sure there's much jostling to be done. 40 seconds left to go, a 10-point lead from France, and you're watching World Championship Fencing on WCSN.com, the home of world champions, in cooperation with Fencing Pictures. Another touch score. So we're getting dangerously close to the 45 points. 36 seconds. What do you think?
I'm surprised. I'm sure we'll get to 45. Hormai's not one to give up and just stand there, she'll keep trying her best. At least make a few glorious hits to give them something to remember.
That's right. double touch, and again, the French pleased enough with double touches. They can go that way forever. 27 seconds left, so Hormaya is going to become, I believe, a freight train of women's epee. She's going to start getting down the strip awfully quickly.
It's always interesting because I never see Hormaya attack so much. So this is why team is so fascinating. Because now you see we're forced to do something that you normally wouldn't do.
23 seconds. Well, the last time I announced it was only a couple of seconds for that touch.
I'd like to see Hormaya go for the toe.
Yeah, at this point you could try just about anything. I mean,
yeah, change it up a bit.
Get creative.
How about a flesh to the toe?
Well, that'd be something to see. Complete face plant and then just slide along the strip would be gorgeous. I'd pay good money to see that. 44 to 31 now.
1 point away from being world champions yet again.
Yet again. I was talking with
these two teams both have a long, glorious winning tradition.
And there it is on the toe touch. Goes back to an old favorite. Oh, that's kind of an in-your-face, too, I'd have to say.
Well, it's her standard move, either the flank or the toe touch on the last hit.
And the French team takes the stage, and they are psyched. Talking with U.S. men's epee coach Paul Soder the other day, and as we watched the medal ceremony and they were raising the French flag, they started playing the French national anthem, and I said, oh, there it is, the French national anthem, and he said, my daughter calls it the fencing song.
It does feel that way.
Yeah. They do look very pleased. That their coach leading the strip right now. Being congratulated by friends and referees all over, shaking hands. So, what's your take on the bout? Did you have the French picked out as the champions?
I thought the French. It was so evenly matched because. Especially right at the beginning, but you know, in the first 4 matches, it was so evenly matched. But the French pulled away, and they fenced overall more intelligently, I think. But they had better tactics.
The French across the board, I believe, had higher world standings. Do you think that comes into play too much?
In team, not so much, but maybe in the experience factor. This is a really young Hungarian team. 2 of the girls, it's their very first year on the national team, so
it would be great for you to get a chance to talk to them and see what was on their mind. And, when you get back to training, see what was cooking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See what their side of the story is. It's always interesting to see what they feel behind the mask.
That's
and what
right.
you can see from out here.
That's right, and it kind of sounds like your book, Behind the Mask Somehow, Running with Swords. I'm going to actually look that up right when I get back home. I'll be anxious to read it, and that way next time I see you, I can have you sign my copy. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Awesome. Well, Shireen Mackay, did I get it right this time?
Perfect.
This is getting better and better all the time. When I was growing up, there was a friend of mine who was in the music scene when I was younger, particularly the hardcore punk rock music scene, which was thriving when I was a kid, and the band Minor Threat. And there was always, from Washington, D.C., and the singer was Ian MacKaye. And there used to be a running argument, is it Ian MacKaye or is it Ian Mackay?
Well, when I first met my husband and he said his last name was Mackay, I thought, oh, that's pompous. It's MacKaye.
It's MacKaye, get over it.
But actually, the man who started the clan was I.